Did you know that menopause has been classified as a disease by the medical industry? I'm Vanessa Nixon. I'm a traditional naturopath, and I love empowering women to feel supported and healthy and vibrant throughout their menopausal journey. And this is a little concerning to me that our medical industry has medicalized this natural, normal process of menopause. Menopause is actually classified as a disease of deficiency. And for those of us that are over the age of 35 who may be going through perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause, I think this is something that we need to talk about. We need to be concerned about the fact that this natural, normal state of life that we now at this point in history have the privilege, most of us, to have the opportunity to go through, when in past generations, women did not always have the opportunity to live until they got to menopause. For our medical industry now to be classifying this as a state of disease is very problematic and very concerning. And so what I want to share with you and what I hope we can be talking about more often, especially now that menopause is starting to be talked about. For the first time in history, we are hearing people talking about menopause. It is coming out of this position that it used to hold as kind of a taboo subject. And we are hearing about it in the media. We're having different places of the world starting to address how can we better support women in the workplace through menopause? How can we support women in general to navigate this phase of life? And as our lifespans are increasing, this is becoming something that we really do need to address. How can we keep a really wonderful, healthy quality of life as we mature? And the medicalization of menopause, I think, is really harming that process. Calling menopause a disease, categorizing it as a disease of deficiency is not only problematic, but it is untrue. Menopause is not a disease. It is not a state of deficiency. It is a natural, normal process that our bodies are designed to go through during the last half or third of a woman's life. And when I say the second half of your life, that is really true for so many of us. We will be living half of our lives post-menopausally. And this is something that has not happened in the past. As I referred to a couple of minutes ago, in recent history, a woman's lifespan has been much shorter. 100 years ago, the average lifespan of a woman in the US was 53 years. So a lot of women are just going through menopause at that time, at that age. 200 years ago, the average lifespan of a woman in the US was 34. So many, many women did not even live to see menopause. But now the average lifespan of a woman in the US is in the early 80s. It's getting longer and longer every year. And so if a woman has gone through menopause in her 40s, she might live more years post-menopause than she did before. And so this is not a state of disease. We're not living in a state of disease for half of our lives. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense that our bodies would be designed to go through this process if it was a state of deficiency, a state of disease. So our bodies are self-healing. Our bodies have an innate intelligence. Our bodies know how to be healthy, how to live in the best way possible. And it's often because we're not listening to the messages our body's sending us. We're not taking into consideration the natural cycles that we as women go through, especially when we're talking about the medical industry, which in the past has been developed and run mostly by men in a very patriarchal fashion. In fact, it's just been in the last couple of decades that women have been included in medical research. So most of the studies that are referenced, most of the research that we have on how the body works has been done on men, not on women. And women have very different cycles. Women have very different rhythms to their body. We're much more cyclical. We're much more rhythmical than a man's physiology. And so to try to apply research and studies that's been done on men to women is problematic. And when we are talking about the categorization of disease, it's important to take that into consideration, that these decisions and these categories of disease have been designed based on male physiology and not female physiology. So I just want to say a couple more things, and I'm going to make some more videos on some of the other things that I would love for us to be having a conversation about around menopause. But for this particular video, I just want to focus on the fact that menopause is natural for us. It's a natural state for us to be in the last third or half of our lives. And it's natural for us to be healthy during this phase. And when we categorize a natural state of life as a disease or as a state of deficiency, that is something that reverberates throughout our conditioning and our consciousness and culture. And so women are being told, women are being conditioned to believe that when they go through menopause, they will be unhealthy, that they will be living in a state of disease and deficiency. So I want to reframe that for us. I want to reframe that even though many women do have some symptoms as they go through menopause, that doesn't mean that they're in a state of deficiency or that it's a disease. In the very same way that when we go through puberty, we often have symptoms. Our bodies are changing. Our bodies feel different. Our bodies sending us messages. We have a whole plethora of symptoms that we experience during adolescence. If we can remember back to that time, we can remember all of the symptoms and things that were changing in our bodies that might have been confusing, might have been alarming, but that didn't mean we were in a state of disease. It didn't mean we were deficient in something. It didn't mean that this was something we needed to medicalize. It just meant that we needed to pay attention to those messages and to support ourselves to navigate that big life transition in as healthy a way as possible. And it's the same thing now. Our bodies are changing. We may be having some symptoms. That doesn't mean we're in a state of disease or deficiency. What it means is that we need to really listen to the messages our body is sending us. And we need to support ourselves in those ways that are natural to our body, that our body really craves right now, so that we can navigate this life transition in as healthy a way as possible. And one of the reasons that this has been called a state of deficiency is because our hormones are declining. Some of our hormones, our reproductive hormones, are declining during this transition. And what I want to share is that we can reframe this, and I think we should reframe this also, because we're supposed to have declining reproductive hormones. Our reproductive hormones are not supposed to stay at the level they were at when we were in the reproductive phase of our lives. The reason we had higher levels of reproductive hormones was so that we could reproduce if we chose to. That was the reason that our hormones elevated to that reproductive level. We didn't have high levels of reproductive hormones in the first third of our lives. That didn't mean we were in a state of deficiency or disease then throughout our childhood and up into our teen or perhaps early 20s. But our hormones raised for that middle section of our lives so that our bodies could reproduce, so we could have children if we chose to do so. Once we leave that phase of life, our hormones are supposed to decline again because we're no longer in that reproductive phase of life. It doesn't mean we're deficient. It just means we're in a different life phase that is normal and natural for us, and a phase of life that we can be healthy in. In fact, we can be healthier than we've ever been, and we don't need to artificially boost those hormones back to a level that they were in a previous life phase, because we're not meant to do that. That's not what's natural and normal for our bodies. It's not the cycle that we're in. And when we try to artificially induce a different life phase, that's problematic. It causes some issues. And so when we look to how can we be the healthiest version of ourselves that we possibly can be, we need to take that into account. We need to take into account, what phase of life am I in? How is my body supposed to be functioning at this phase of life? And the answer is never that, oh, your body should be functioning in the way that it did in a different life phase. Whatever phase of life you're in, the answer is never that, oh, we should change it so that your body is functioning in the proper way for a different phase of life. That's not natural. That's not natural to the rhythms and the cycles. And so if we can really listen to what our bodies are saying, and if we can really tap into the natural phase of life, then I think that we can access so much more health, such higher levels of wellness and well-being than if we try to artificially construct something that is not natural for us during this life phase. So let's see how we can reframe this as the conversation about menopause is brought to the forefront. Let's see how we can reframe this as a joyful, or as traditional Chinese medicine calls it the our second spring. How can we walk into our second spring feeling joyful and healthy and vibrant in ways that are natural to our bodies? All right, if you enjoyed this, I encourage you to like and subscribe and share it with anybody that you think might find this valuable.